So we're going to talk about motion blur effects, and I've got uh, this basically this stock image here of this Tesla that I'm going to play around with, and it's basically common usage rights image here. And let me just kind of break this down. So this is a variety of layers here with different amounts of pan and spin blurs applied to them. So here's the original image, and then what we can do here is we can have background only layers, car only layers, and then we can have other things popping up. So here is a tire that's been blurred. Here's another tire that's been blurred. Here's motion blur on the background. And here's motion blur again, just a little bit more on the background. So one's kind of affecting the car a little bit, one's affecting the car and the background. So there's different ways to do this, but we're going to kind of break it up and blur each area separately. So on this image here, I've got kind of all the components. So the original image, and then if we look here, here's the background without the car. Here's the car only, tire 2, and tire 1. And you'll even notice my selections aren't perfect. They don't really have to be. So let's kind of look at here. So we have our background here that we can kind of refer back to if we need to. But I'm going to click on the background only layer, and I'm going to add some motion to this. So what I'll do is I'm going to go filter, and I'm going to go to blur gallery, and I'm going to go to path blur. And what I'll do with the path blur here, and there's some different ways you could do this, but I'm going to take this left dot and kind of put it down towards the headlight. I'm going to take the right dot and put it down towards kind of the bumper area here. And that alone, you can start to see there's sort of a blur. Now there's a curve here, so I'm going to take the center and I'll move it, and I'm just going to put a bend in it. I'm going to kind of try to follow that arc of the background wall so that I've got a little bit more, it looks like the road is kind of following the blur here. So now what I can do is I can adjust the speed a little bit to decide if I want to make it go blurrier or not. And then there's a taper control, so we can kind of see if it should be falling off or not. And it just kind of allows you to see how the blur will move. Now you can leave the centered on, or you can turn the center off, and you'll get kind of a different effect. And it needs to update here to show me the preview, so you can kind of really see the difference there. So you'll see that things are really kind of starting to shift and turn in the image here as we play around. Now, you can edit the blur shapes if you wanted to. So you can kind of see here is the blue coming to this point, and then there's sort of this tail off, and you can see that's kind of raising the up and down a little bit and play around there. So there's some fun things we can do with that. I strongly suggest you leave a little bit of noise in there. I usually kind of find around 10 to be kind of a good way to go. I don't really have to worry about so much about bokeh in this one here, but I allow that to just kind of start us off here, and there's a nice little bit of background blur mainly here that I'm focused on. So I'm going to click OK. And the next thing I'm going to do is turn on the car. So you can see the car here. And with the car only, that one I probably don't want to blur much. So I want to keep this mostly there, but let's just kind of play around with that. And I might even want to have one normal and go Command J and allow one that's a little bit blurrier. So I'm going to turn off the top one. We're just focused on this here. I'll call this blurry car. And I'm going to do kind of a similar effect to it. I'm going to go filter. I'm going to go to blur gallery. I'll do path blur again. And you'll see it's just really affecting the car. I'm kind of going to do that same sort of step here. I'm going to kind of pull in, get that curve again. So now, just for fun, I'm going to change it from basic blur to rear sync flash. With the rear sync flash, that means that at some point you have a flash go off, and then you have some kind of these motion effects, and you get kind of this trailing action here, which is kind of fun. So I can kind of see about that. And if it's a little too strong, maybe I'll take down the speed a little bit here. And that can be super fun. So I'm going to leave that on like so. And I'm going to click OK. Now, so there's the blurrier car, but I want the main part of the car to be in focus. So I turned this on, the car only on, and you'll see that like the front end is nice and sharp. You'll see that now I got just a little bit of trail off the edge. And you could decide if you want more or less. So like if I want a little bit of the headlight, I could make a mask, and I'll take a brush with black and maybe just right around, just part of that, allow it. And maybe I'll just take a little bit more down so that you get a little bit more of a fade off. But now there's a little bit more kind of a wispiness, like a little bit of turn there. But I got most of the car nice and sharp. So it looks like I've kind of been able to pan this pretty good. So, and then I'll do the tires. So I'll do tire 2. Tire 2 is this bottom right one here. And what I'm going to do is I'll go filter, and I'm going to go down to blur gallery, and this time I'll do spin. Let it pop up. Now I'm going to move in this pin to about the center of that tire, and I'm going to collapse the shape in. So I'm taking this in tight so that it's just the tire area. Doesn't have to be perfect, mind you. Now I upped the blur quite a bit here. So I'm just trying to figure out kind of what should be in blurred the most. And I'm kind of just playing with the blur angle here. I'm going to take it down just a little bit. So I get some rim, but maybe it's not totally crazy here. And if you want to do a similar kind of motion effect, you could have a strobe strength turned on here. And that's going to allow you to have somewhat of a look like a flash went off, but you'll still get some bit of amount of allowing your tire to sort of fade in, fade out. And so I'll click OK, and you get kind of nice little almost like spin. And if it's too strong because the car was underneath, I can lower down the opacity, and now it looks a little bit cooler, or I can have it more blurry. So I'm going to do pretty much the same effect, but I like 2 different blurs for each tire because they're not identical. So I'll go filter, and I'm going to go to blur gallery. I'll do spin one more time. And same sort of process. I'll pull this up over here. Oops. I accidentally created an extra pin, so I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. Nope. I'm having a hard time hitting that line for some reason. There we go. Now I can shrink it in, get it close. And I could do it so it looks about the same. I could add my strobe strength a little bit more. Kind of get it the way I like it. And I'll click OK. So you can kind of play around with this, but you can really start to play with having motion and an motion effect in an image with both the path and spin. It can be pretty fun when it's all said and done.